Namaste. And welcome. Okay, so instead of our normal Thursday night group for just the residents, we're open up to the public, right?
Yep.
So I wanted to continue in the theme of the 4 stages, as we talked about stages 2 and 3, and I want to continue to expand on that principle, the idea of the 4 stages. I'm going to talk about tonight the four stages of realization. And I notice there's 4 stages of knowledge, there's 4 stages of love, there's 4 stages knowing. This is really a organizing principle for my teachings that's coming forward that is carrying, and it's like a scaffolding for us to open into our inquiry over the nature of what it is we are in truth, what is the nature of the unfolding of that process of ourselves as we come into a truer relationship with what we are and out of the who we are. So tonight's the 4 stages of realization, and I wanted to first address what do I mean by realization. It is when whatever we have becomes real for us. What makes anything that comes to us in consciousness that makes it real means it's entered into our individual identity, our first stage consciousness. It's entered into the quality of our, the specificity of our sensory mind structure, and it gets it. The most ignorant part of us gets it. So when our mind gets it, or when our heart gets it, or when our body gets it, I'm describing that as realization. It is coming into the embodied truth of what you are. So I can only speak of this because that's what happened for me, and it took a long time for that to become real. Because it's just like what makes us life, ourselves, our identity as people real is because we've been living it for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. We've been keep reinforcing it as part of our everyday life. It's what brushes our teeth in the morning, right? It's what takes a crap. It's what prepares the meal. It's what goes shopping, right? That's the one that needs to learn about what's real. Everything else, the real doesn't need to know it's real. That which we make real doesn't need to know this. It's the embodiment that fulfills the purpose of this entire process. It's when you get it. You, that individual, complaining, shallow, unexamined part of yourself, struggling with attachments and resistance and repulsions and reactions. It's when that gets it. That's the marker. That's the measure. So until then, there's a process. Because of the nature of spirit, the nature of spirituality, deals with the very fabric of consciousness. It is of a different kind of knowing than dealing with the content of things, the objective world, things that your mind can know through observation or touching or sensory. It's outside of the sensorium of our normal identity. But there is a kind of knowing that comes, and it has stages. The first is recognition. Now, you don't even know you have recognition until the recognition happens. What happened? What is the nature of that which you recognize? Does not fit in the box of your usual knowing or your usual experiencing. It's of a different order than the kind of knowing and experiencing you knew in your normal separated sensory mind-body structure. So recognition is the beginning. Some people have this recognition from birth, and they bring this recognition into life, and they know there's a God, and they know there's, in one form or another, it could be nature, it could be beauty, it could be the sky, it could be the night sky, it could be the stars, it could be whatever it is, the idea of a possibility. It could be any of these things are hinting at what recognition is, but it's a resonance that happens in our consciousness with something greater. Okay, so it's a resonating, like a tuning into, hearing, listening, like the song of the Gita. It's like being able to recognize something's happening, but you don't know what it is in recognition. There's not a structure to hold it. There's not a vessel that would say, oh, that's God, that's God. But, the ego could lay claim to any of these recognitions and say what it is. It could say it's a monster. It could say I'm going mad. It could say it's wrong. It could show up as a repulsion. Or it could show up as the person, the person who walked into your life 1 second after the recognition, and you'll assign it to them. Oh, this is my love. This is the person I'm going to live the rest of my life with. Not recognizing that the recognition happened first, and then somebody showed up in the space of the recognition. Many different ways recognitions can occur. And that's true with revelation, which is the next way you can know that that thing we're talking about, that thing we're pointing to, that could be realized. This quality of beingness, this quality of consciousness that is outside of the box of our individual identity, outside of the box of our old knowing or our old experience. So realization is when what we recognize becomes more tangible. It gets a little bit more real. It's not so fleeting. It lands. Like a piece of what it is you recognize lands. And it kind of sticks with you. You don't forget realizations when they come. If you want to look into the nature of your unfolding out of your individuality into your universal nature, it's accumulation of these real recognitions, these revelations, accumulations. Recognitions may not leave a lasting impression. A recognition comes and goes. It just, but so is a revelation, but it lands. It leaves an impression in the conscious, a mark. And those are our early glimpses, our early knowings about, there's something more than me. That, it's like someone shared that they were walking down the hallway and they looked up, they were a child, and they looked up and they saw the light bulb in the hallway. And what came up for them is, this is God. That in the dark, that which illuminates the dark hallway, the child could say God, and she never forgot the experience, even though she, it didn't fit into anything that she knew from her past otherwise. Okay, so these are things you can know, right? I'm not talking about abstractions. I'm talking about how do we as human beings can begin to recognize what is the nature of what we are becoming, because that's where it's pointing to. That's why there's 4 stages. It is a process of becoming something other than what we thought we were, felt we were, or knew we were. So the revelations that can come are usually in the early stages, fleeting. They can occur in any of the 4 stages. The first stage being your human life. Second stage being the awakened life. Third stage being where you're starting to contact the universal forces. And the 4th stage is when you meet the absolute, when you meet the supreme. So it can occur anywhere. Well, it won't need to occur after you get into the 4th stage, but in the process, it can occur while you're a human, and it can occur in your awakening process. And what it is, it's always going to be something greater than what you've known previously. So if you've been awakened for a long time and you have a revelation of something greater, it can be of the 3rd stage, or it can be of the 4th stage. So these revelations, you may not be able to tell the difference. You can't tell the nature of the journey until you've traveled the whole journey. At any one point of the journey, you may conclude that this is it. A lot of human beings do that. 98% of the people on the planet make this as their base. This is it. I attained humanhood. Look at all those creatures that I'm not. Look how much free and independent and powerful I am than all these other dim-witted creatures that are run by instinct and reactivity. Right? That's the first awakening, as we accomplish becoming a human being. And the nature of the awakening of the human being is a story in itself. You know, the moment you awoke to you being a person. I shared that one standing on the boat in San Francisco Bay. And there was just this, I'm here. That was a realization of the first stage. I'm really here. The sense that I am a person came in that way. And then it went away, but I never forgot it. But because it was a revelation, and with it came this well, actually it didn't. It came with a revelation, which then was and that child mind didn't know what it meant, but it just never forgot it. I was in the world in a new way from that point on. And I didn't even see the correlation between that event on the boat on San Francisco Bay and how I was different in my life, because my consciousness was not developed enough as an individual. And that is also one of the reasons why these things don't stick, is our individual consciousness hasn't been developed enough to be able to hold on to it. The second stage of realization happens with the awakening. Of course, the awakening itself can catapult you into the third stage, even glimpses of the fourth stage, as well as waking out of what you were before. So the nature of the realization that comes in the second stage, awakening stage, is usually in the category of what you've awakened from, like how screwed up you were, how screwed up, how much suffering you were in, how much obscurity you're in. It's like waking up from sleep, realizing, oh, I've been asleep. So there is this waking up from. You don't know what you've awakened up to, but you know what you've waken up from. So the nature of the realization of what you've awakened to in the second stage has two components. It's what you no longer are and what you have become. And those two may vary in the process. And typically what happens in the awakened state, it doesn't last, and you retreat back into your old identity in stage one as a person. And then the person says, I had an awakening experience. So that person then can realize, oh, that's what I had. I had an awakening experience. Now, how would it know that it realized it? It would have to have someone explain to the mind of the individual that this is what awakening was, the different ways awakening can be experienced, the different kinds of awakening that you can read the information about or hear someone tell you about. And then you hear it and you say, oh, I know what that is. That's what happened to me. That's why my life went to shit. Or I met God, either equal or both. This unfolding of the nature into the second stage, however, is very much tainted by how developed we are in our unfolding in the first stage, how mature we are in the development of ourselves as an individual identity, an individual person in the course of our life. And there is this maturation, which then increases our capacity to recognize and to have experienced the revelation and to actually realize what the second or third or fourth stages may be. Because it all comes down to the first stage. If the first stage has not been able to come to enough clarity or enough organization as an individual identity, then when the awakened, the second stage or the third stage or the fourth stage, it will not know how to hold it. It will not be able to realize it because the system is not yet capable, not yet individualized enough so that it can go from recognition and revelation into realization. And so it may not even happen until you complete the fourth stage. In the fourth stage, when you come out of the fourth stage, you can know everything I'm saying. It will take time to put words to it, like I put words to it. But if you have this body of information, you'll be able to find a link between what you just experienced or what you just met and the individual in you. What does it mean? What does it mean to be awakened for me? How does it affect my life? How do I live? How do I interact? How am I different? What's the difference between what I was before I awakened and what I am when I'm like when I am awakened. What is it? How am I different when I connect to a greater being or greater force of the third stage than what I'm like when I haven't? There is this tangible sense of distinction that will come in time. You may have to spend a couple of lifetimes in the awakened stage before you really get what it is that you have awakened to. It's easy to get what you awakened from, but to get what you awakened to, you might have languaging. You know, you could say Buddha or Vishnu, or you could say the vastness or the infinity, or you could have some sort of idea or principle like the truth of existence. You could be a scientist and actually have access to a third stage awareness. And that is what, and then what happens when you tap these, as I've said in my earlier talks, is you tap the greater purpose. But when you awaken to the second stage, you may not know a greater purpose than the kind of purpose you knew as a human being. It's a different kind of purposefulness that you might encounter. And it might not apparently mean anything in terms of you changing your life in the stage 2 until it's matured, until you've been in that stage 2 of the awakening process, until it's become familiar territory. And then when it becomes familiar territory, when you live mostly in the awakened state, I call it when you live mostly in the what and not in the who, then you know that what you are is this what, and that you're not this who, and it's real for you. It's not an abstraction. It's not an if or maybe. You have to travel a lot of distance in confusion and uncertainty and not knowing in the awakened state before it becomes real for you. And it may not even become real for you until the fourth stage. And even then, it's not certain. Realization does not come to everyone. You may have to take another life before what they come to in a previous life. It can become articulate enough that it could be realized. Because you have to actually keep improving the body. You got to keep making more sattvic, the individual identity, so that these greater states can be held and recognized for what they are. And then there's the third stage. Now, what happens with the second stage, you know you're the what, and you think you got it figured out. I'm the vastness, I'm the beingness. And you can go into life and you can be a human being and it doesn't distress you like it did before. Suffering may rise up, but you don't suffer. Difficulties and challenges may rise up, but you don't experience it. They're just things arising up in the field of you. That's the nature of the quality of being of the second stage. So when the third stage shows up, it often shows up as a teacher or someone who carries something of the third stage or as a channel for the third stage. Someone who chants, brings in the mantras, evokes the forces. You could meet a tradition, but if you meet a tradition, you have to meet somebody who can actually not just say the mantras or chant the Sanskrits, but who can channel what it is. You know, there's a kind of a lulling in our human consciousness around sound, music, or voice can bring us in sort of a kind of a hypnotized quality where we get some relief from our human identity. That's still within learning how to play the strings of the harp of your human embodiment. It's not yet spirit. It's just hinting of spirit. It's not necessarily going to awaken you. It'll just call you to something that is less accessible. The body can do this. If the nervous system can be very subtle. And then when we come to the place where we're refined enough, these things are actually what motivates us. Art, poetry, music. We catch with something that's like the reflection of awakened state. And that prepares us for when the awakening comes. But when we're talking about being able to access the third stage, this is the force, the spiritual force. This is a force didn't have its origin in embodiment. It didn't have its origin in the human sensorum domain, the possibilities of sensory experiences. It's an extremely complex system the human body is, the five senses and the nervous system and its ability to pick up the vibrations of the environment and its own inner reactivity and response to the environment. There's this huge complexity in the human system, but that doesn't mean it's awake. Doesn't mean it's spirit. It is simply life. Of course, inherent in each of us, we carry spirit, but its ability to be known as us, by us, is when the spiritual path begins. So when we start listening to chanting, however, it can be a passageway, depending upon the capacity of the chanter, where something comes through them from that third plane, some evoke it. This is the lower end of the third plane. It's kind of like putting up a straw and sucking a bit of the third stage. So when you chant, there's like a sucking and some of the juice of that universal forces, right? You start drinking it, right? You start like a nectar. You start feeling it in your body. So that's the early stages. And this can happen, of course, in a first stage, but it won't last at all. But in a second stage, you can feel yourself like being nurtured, like the plant of you, the beingness of you being fed, and the being responds in more and more. So it'll take any of these avenues by which it comes, and it can be the mantras coming along the channel of experience, but it can also come to the channel of awareness. Part of it just is the design of the body, how experiential the body is, and how more awareness it is. Which frequencies are the body open to, higher or lower frequencies. But even awareness being can benefit from mantra. It can benefit from breath. It can benefit from any of the technologies, like in the fourth chapter, where they reveal all the practices, spiritual practices, meditation, chanting, personal discipline, yoga, so on and so forth. So as we begin to be able to drink from this third stage, whatever we were in the second stage begins to change. And when these forces, the universal forces, start working, the first stage starts really changing. Whatever had been that we were come to in our consciousness, in our awakened state, there's a component of it that keeps revealing what's obscured, what's not awakened. It keeps showing us bits and pieces. But when the third force comes in, we're no longer witnessing, we're transforming, we're transmuting that in us, which is not able to enter into the third stage. So it becomes a period of intense transformation, intense transmutation when these forces kick in. There is it's no longer just a recognition, although you can recognize the truth of it. And it's no longer just revelation, which you can reveal something of the aspect of the truth. You know, like Krishna is real. The Gita is a real structure in which these forces are coming in. You can get a sense that there's principles and rules and structures beyond yourself that are purposeful, in which you're merging into. Your sense of being on a path, your sense of traveling somewhere becomes more tangible. It could happen, of course, in the second stage. You know, it depends upon the teacher if you have a third stage influence in your life. And of course, the third stages have their two aspects. This vast, the identity of a second stage sense of I am it, the beingness that comes with it. The beingness of the second stage is still dependent on its first stage consciousness for its identity. It still says, I'm the awakened version of what I was. But in this third stage, you start experiencing in the awareness, I am that. This realization is I am that is coming. The tangible sense lasting maybe moments or lasting maybe longer periods of time. I am this quality that doesn't reference my individual identity. It's no longer dependent on the person that I thought I was for its truth. It is a self-evident truth. It's like you get grounded in a quality of knowing yourself that's not based on the same principles of you having a body and a name and a story and a history. A new kind of authority comes especially in the third stage, where the I amness is, I am Krishna. I am the Divine Mother. I am the ocean of grace. I am this vast infinity. I am this world. I am everything that comes to me. I am the worm. I am the butterfly. I am the snake. I am the suffering humanity. That a sense of I amness now becomes more and more real, where we become, our identity becomes this universal principle of consciousness that's no longer bound by that which we were. So I should say something about, there's this gradation that occurs in this spiritual process, and how much we bring along the first stage into the second stage, and how much we bring along the first or second stage into the third stage is your labor. It is your own maturation process. It is this developmental, it's you walking the path. It is that person of you aligning its physical life, its mental life, its vital life, its emotional life, its idea of existence into these greater and greater possibilities for being. And in the process, shedding the convincing reality of the previous realizations, right? Realizations and reality are pointing to the same thing. Because when you realize something, a new reality occurs. If you not realize, then the reality you're living is the reality. So we literally create a different world as we move into revelation and realization. Literally, we have a different capacity to be in existence, to know in existence, to experience in existence. And the fourth stage, which is the completion of the journey, which I recognize is quite rare, but I can see that people have glimpses of this, even in the first stage, even in the second stage, definitely in the third stage, without knowing what it is they just glimpsed. But there is always recognition. If you're in a second or third stage, you recognize the absolute when it shows up. And with it comes this incredible authority, this incredible certainty, certitude, complete, like it's the completion of faith, where no longer faith is needed. You don't need to have faith. You don't need to believe it. There's no longer doubt. There's no longer confusion. There's no longer anxiety or need. Well, the body may carry any of these old habits, but for you, there is a certainty. And this can be experienced, as I said, in each one of it. And every piece of certainty that you have, that can be the ballast, the keel that holds you in what it remains in the karmas you're working out in your first stage or even in your second stage. It's what lets you be with it and learn from it instead of be overtaken by it or run from it. So this nature of the authority, of the truth of what we are, comes to its full knowingness in the fourth stage. Now, everything in the earlier stages are a fragment of the later stages. Even our human love is a reflection of the third stage love. Even as a patient mother for a very difficult child is a reflection of the fourth stage realization. It's this capacity to be in authority with what is arising without wavering, without caviling, without doubt or trying to change it or make it different, which is inclusive in its essential structure instead of exclusive. Exclusiveness ends at the end of the second stage. Inclusiveness expands endlessly in the third stage because you become that which you're in relating to. They are you. They are your children. They are your expressions of the nature of what you're becoming, each in its own unique way. So this vast love, this unconditional, to varying degrees of love, comes with the third stage as we progress through that piece of the journey. And maybe we don't fully realize what it is that we become in the third stage until we drop a body. We have to drop having been an individual first stage before the full authority of the third stage of what you become. And then you live in these domains where you have powers and capacities and you're serving the transcending souls and the evolving souls from the subtle world. But when you take the next body, you will choose that body. You will choose those circumstances so that what has come to you can be made real in your embodiment. Because at some point you recognize it's not complete until the person gets it. And when you get to the fourth stage, it is either there is and all the various stages of maturity have been completed. Then there's no reason to come back because you never went anywhere. There's no place to go. That's absolutely whole and complete, just as it is, as it's always been and always will be. So in the fourth stage, there is no need to come back unless something of you in the third stage took some responsibility to lift the planet, to assist others to travel through their stages for themselves. This is the Bodhisattva principle that Buddha talks about. But that Bodhisattva is mostly understood like doing good. But really, its ultimate expression is the avatar that steps in and intervenes in the collective consciousness, taking on an individual form to be able to meet the content of what it is that's currently brought the darkness that's there, and then lift it first up within themselves individually, and then to recover their true state in the process. And then they come to serve the collective consciousness. So the nature of the realization determines the nature of the work or how you live. It has a great deal to do with the possibility of existence that is available to you to access. Because if you can be fourth stage and embodied, then the fullness of what it means to be an individual in these domains can be fully recognized, revealed, and experienced, realized as true. And it's these fully developed souls that can language and guide and change the direction of the unfolding humanity at that one stage of life, that one period of time. That's what they do. Because they do not waver. They do not doubt. They're uncaviling. They're very purposeful. And they also have access, all the forces of all the stages to operate with. Okay. So there's another way of describing the journey of consciousness, the return journey. This is like in the Gita. This is all what the Gita is about. Chapters 1 through 6 is chapter 1 starts with awakening. The previous chapters were evolutionary. And also you as a soul traveling through the many, many lifetimes till you were mature enough to awaken. But the Gita, first to 7th chapters, is this process of the awakening. 8th to the 12th chapters, the third stage journey. And the fourth stage journey starts at the end of chapter 15. Actually, take it back. Fourth stage happens from chapter 13 through 15, those 3 chapters. And at that point, you know you are the imperishable. You know you are the supreme being as fourth stage realization. The other remaining 3 chapters, 16, 17, and 18, are as if you are to manifest, if you are to bring that back into the world. Of course, these teachings are useful no matter where you are in these 4 stages. They're useful to understand in the human stage through the intellect. They're useful to have a sense of, to be open to in the awakened state as a way of giving you a sense of purpose and direction in the unfolding of your awakening so you don't stop. And they're useful in terms of being able to define the nature of the quality of experience of consciousness that occurs when you go beyond the second stage of awakening. And that's what's revealing in the 9th chapter, where Krishna is saying, I am all that there is. I am, in the 7th stage, he begins, I am the fire, I am the elements, I am the air, this is me. It's all, and in the later chapters, all of this is just a piece of what I am. So it's this unfolding from an identity that has established itself in the 3rd stage. And in that, from that authority, then there's this possibility of coming to the absolute in the 15th chapter. Until that point, especially in the 3rd stage, we need a Krishna. We need a guru. We need someone who's traversed that according to wherever we are. If we're way up there, it has to be someone in the 4th stage. If we're not, it has to be someone in the 3rd stage that's higher than you. If you're in the 2nd stage, it has to be someone who's more awake than you. Each can play a role depending upon where you are. But the Gita points to the entire journey. And this teaching has not been widely available. Most people are struggling in the 2nd stage, if they're awakened at all, with some aspects of the 3rd stage. So now is the time. The fullness of the Gita can now be revealed. It's now being revealed as something you can actually find and recognize, have it revealed to you, and realize in your day-to-day life. Okay, there you have it. Once again, a new version of the same thing. Repetition is the art of this. Ramananda. You want to get the microphone?
Test. I usually key in on what you've just been saying, and now I can't remember what it was.
Some of it's next now.
So I guess I got to fly by the seat of my pants at this point. Something happened on Monday, and I don't know whether I have to back up to try to understand what happened. Maybe
or feel into it. Yeah, feel into it. Just talk around it and see what shows up.
Well, what I remember was on Saturday, you talking about that you just came out of samadhi, and you were having these. You were describing the breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that was about the suffocation story.
Oh yes,
yeah,
yes,
right.
Yes,
got it.
So, so I sat, and all of a sudden, this kind of
shallow,
teeny
breath,
teeny. I couldn't believe how teeny.
Almost like you're not breathing.
Am I breathing in or breathing out?
Yeah. Am I? Am I breathing?
Am I? So and I'm going with it, and letting it happen, and I don't think I could not let it happen at this point. Wow, it just touches me so much. So anyway, this force came in, and what had been this and everything else kind of just dissolved.
Okay.
And then I started to, I don't visualize hardly at all, but I knew it was you. Mm-hmm. I could feel you, and you just came in and came in and came in and came in and came in.
And that's where you went, huh?
And then this smile happened, and it was like one smile, you and me.
One smile.
One smile.
Beautiful. I described the nature of samadhi as where you take the dualities of hate and love, or or awake or sleep, and they start merging. So it's the same thing happens with inhale and exhale. So when your breath becomes shallow, it means the duality is ending. That the structure of separation it's no longer being able to be maintained, and it's collapsing into its original nature from which it came from. So the shallow breath means that the inhale and the exhale have become less until they become the same. That opens your system. So it opened up your system. And then the nearest version of what that is showed up for you as Satri. So, and then something, because of that connection, something of what that is came to you. And that is, I mean, it's a method. It's a technique, actually, in yoga, pranayama, in meditation, in samadhi. And it happens spontaneously when the structures that keep us struggling in duality and the extremes of hate and love, or like and dislike, attraction and repulsion, sorrow and joy, when these start losing their authority to hold us in the duality, we start collapsing into the both arising at the same time. I'm in pain and bliss. It's the nature of what happens when you go to pain. There's pain and pleasure, right? And as you start moving on the spiritual path, the boundary, the separation between those two become less. The preference for one or the other, or the repulsion to one or attraction to the other, becomes less and less until it's pain bliss, pain bliss, and then there is something else. So if you look at the nature of the unfolding of the journey as we come out of our separation in the awakened state, it's a conscious participation into the return journey of the journey of consciousness. We return to source. So now just take that whole principle. I've shown it as a diagram where there's a descent into creation, and then an evolution, and then the awakening, and then the return to the source. I'll just turn it upside down. Okay. So that it comes out of the Sat, there's evolution, and then there's the awakening process, and you're falling back into your original state. It's like a falling back into what you were all along, but had long forgotten or didn't know how to access that from which you were originated from. So the shortness of the breath is one of the ways you can measure where you are in that unfolding. It doesn't mean it's a third stage fully experienced, but your relationship with me is all third stage. It is, and then to varying degrees, your ability to access the fourth stage, so what you just had there. If you had lost consciousness in that place, where the experiencer of everything merged and such, if you had lost consciousness for an extended period of time, when you woke up, your identity would have been different. You wouldn't have woke up to where you usually wake up to. You would have woke up into something extraordinarily different, a new reality, at least for a period of time. So
well, I stayed awake all the way through. I couldn't get up for a while, but
okay.
But this, what appeared to be this and that, gone.
Right.
So
there you go.
there's a soup. It's like I'm a soup.
Yeah, I call it a substance or a fabric or a quality.
The mind can be there, and this can be happening over there, and the watcher's there, but there's nobody doing anything in particular.
Exactly. So the specific individuality isn't there. But now that you've got clarity about what happened to you, where would you say that experience was in the four stages?
I'd say it's on the threshold of the fourth.
Good. Good approximation. It's approximately correct.
Yeah.
See how you can translate into something that can be useful to recognize, so that when your old little pieces of yourself overtake you and you become this crappy, complaining, resistant old self, you can bring something of that. You can bring something of that to that state of consciousness. You say, oh, here I am doing me again. Oh God, once again. So it gives you a place where you become your own transformer. You become the transmuting principle that previously was the teacher or the mantra or the technique
I mean, there's a long, long, long way to go.
Yeah, you know, it took a long time to create a human body, and it took a long time to create a you. So it's going to take a long time to undo it. Count on it. And the secret and the art of this is to endure calmly. Because you never know when it's going to go, and you don't know what this time is going to last. It may disappear for a while, just to make sure there's nothing left in you. Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, Marion.
I'm in a little mixed place.
Okay.
Thursday night, if I saw you Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and I have felt significantly better since.
Okay.
But backing up 2 days, Thursday night, when I was up in the night, not feeling so well, I went out to just sit, and in the silence and the oming and the toning, gentle sacred sounds and things, there was a great deepening, but then there was this moment of this alive blackness. I wouldn't call it shimmering, but alive, very alive.
Right.
And as it was descending into my head, there's also this swath of luminescent, iridescent gold in different places, and another.
In your body? Or
No,
in, your
in this
vision?
blackness.
Okay.
In this blackness that
Mhm.
was,
Radiant.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so that was coming into my head and into my shoulders to here. And then I had this, well, I get a sound in my left ear when I'm supposed to pay attention to something going on with me. It's been going on forever, a little
Good.
something they give me.
Mm-hmm.
So it came on very clear and loud. And I went, oh, pay attention to this. So just for a second, it was like, oh, because I wasn't thinking about what was happening. It was just
Happening.
coming into me. So I went, oh, and I thought, is it usually that's a sign to pay attention? Like there may not be something completely right at the moment. Be alert.
Right.
So I took it as alertness.
Good.
Be alert. And so I thought, is this okay? Maybe this isn't okay. What's coming? I didn't have any reason to say no, but I didn't have a reason to say yes when I didn't know what this was. And so, and I wasn't aware of the talks of descending, all that.
Okay.
So, so I paused and I wasn't afraid. It was just be wise. So I did a prayer of protection, just in case, this is something that isn't good for me. Let's not welcome it in. And then I said, if this is anything less than divine love here, be gone. And I only welcome that or beyond. And so there was just stillness.
So
and it didn't change.
What was the experience then after you said that?
Then it just stayed. It did not go.
Okay.
But it also didn't continue.
Down.
So it just stayed.
How far did it get?
To about my
There.
neck, shoulder.
Not quite the fourth.
No, didn't come into my heart yet. And so I just, it just went with what was. And I knocked out
For a while.
For quite a while, probably hour and a half. Maybe I woke up.
And when you came out, what was it like?
I was very clear and alert, but it was like I must lie down and sleep. It was just I need to go sleep now.
Okay. That means integrate.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
all right, real good. So, Marilyn, you have a guide. It's a benign guide. And it's the one that said, pay attention. And that when you access that guide, you also access the part of structures of protection that you've brought with you into this life. So I've told you before, you have quite a few guides. Mm-hmm. So that's what stopped it from continuing into your body.
Because it was not to,
because of the nature of be alert, could be for good or bad. Mm-hmm. And then the guides that came on that said, this may be good, this may not be good. Where does that come from? It comes from the individual separative identity that can still doubt or feel it could be harmed or limited. So it's the part of our individuality that doesn't know to trust these universal forces. Now, your past experience perhaps have traumatized you with this, but it's also a nature of the beings that you brought with yourself.
I felt like, as I looked at it later, that there's some thread of fear that I could be overtaken in my innocent acceptance.
That's right.
That all is divine and good, because that's just kind of how I see
that
everything.
Naive, innocent quality of ourselves.
Yes.
That once we start forming as egos, some people try to protect, try to make sure it can survive, because as we come out from our, from being whatever state we were before we took birth, and we become embodied and we come into existence, then the issues of separation and division and powerlessness and all of it comes up. So we carry that as part of the, price of taking on a body. So this is there in all of us. And then how much we carry that into life depends upon how much, you could say, confidence or assurance in ourself that we develop, so that we can let down our barriers and let life in. And part of this is, if a fear-based structure, of course, will always, in our individual first stage development, will always bring a conditioning, a qualifying to whatever comes to us, both in awakening in the second stage and in the third stage. So it's a habit of the physical identity. It's a habit of your embodiment.
To protect the life.
Yet the idea is to protect the life, but it's come from the error of embodiment, because what it is it's trying to protect can't be harmed.
Yes, it feels like there's a fear that I won't recognize the divine when it comes, because I'm concerned with protecting myself from that which would be harmful, and I can't distinguish between them.
You can't trust yourself to know the difference.
Yes, that's
and part of it is because you've had guides. You've had guides that have been able to come in and tell you, yes, this is okay. No, that's not. It's like when you divinate, when you throw the sticks in I Ching to determine. It's this way of divining what it is. It's interesting, the word divining, trying to find out what it is that's happening outside of your usual way of knowing, but it still all comes from fear. So that the preparation of our system is to come to a place where there's less fear and more willingness, more openness. So the invitation in our relationship is that something is much bigger is trying to happen, and there is still this protection structure in your individual system. So what do you do? Right? What do you do? Because it's hard to trust from that place. You may have faith. You have great faith, but trust gets in the way, especially with a teacher. So then that becomes the thing that you have to experience. You have to experience the vulnerability. You have to experience the possibility of being wrong. You have to allow for that which you're afraid of to actually happen to whatever extent you can allow yourself to be with it. Not like all at once, but perhaps all at once. Sometimes, if you will, a force can come in and pull you out of this completely. I'm sure it's happened to you, but you come back into it. So this, prayer to the divine, to the divinity that you are, is take me where I cannot take myself. Show me what I can't see myself. Give me the strength and the clarity and the confidence enough to know to surrender, to allow when you come. right? They say Christ knocks on your door every time. It's all the people you thought you didn't want to come into your house that you sent away. That was Christ each time. So, it's this, when we make our repulsions a definer of what's real or not real, this also gets in the way in terms of as we unfold. We transfer it into the awakened state. We transfer it into the third stage.
So at this stage, then, as something is coming,
yeah,
and it may not be the Supreme Being, maybe
it will
something
only
else.
be the Supreme Being in your stage. You need to just stay in your feeling. Don't listen to that part. Just stay in the experience. Yes. It's only been God all along. Okay.
I think I was afraid that it wouldn't be God.
It's not unusual. The bigger the force is, the more primal are the fears that it activates. So, okay, you got it.
I could go again.
Almost too much to hold, huh? Oh yeah. Oh, he's there anyway. So
I just got really hot, so I thought there must be something going on. I mean, all of a sudden I just. Today in the Gita group, I was saying that I have this ability to shut out all the thoughts because I can just breathe and I make this balloon kind of thing, and it just keeps all the thoughts out. But I'm wondering if I'm keeping the sat force out.
Don't worry about it. You're just keeping the thoughts out. That balloon is like a vacuum.
It is, and it's kind of boring in there, and I complain about it. But
yet you still have structures of protection outside of the vacuum. You're still holding off the thoughts rather than letting them rise up and dissipate. See, there's still separation between this particular ability you have and what does not normally allow it. So it takes time, Mary, with this, is that you hold the space and then you allow the thought come in, but only a little bit, just enough so you can see it, and then you send it out.
Yeah, I do have a few of those coming
through. And then what you do is, while you're in the space, see what else you're trying to avoid experiencing. Okay, and you can just go into your body while you're sitting there. Just, okay, you're in your awareness now. Okay, I'm going to step into my heart. Now, what am I trying to avoid here that's there in my heart? Or what's there in my gut? Or what's there in my second or first chakra? What's there in my body that I'm holding out, that I don't want to experience? What is it? And then it'll show itself in that space because you're conscious, right? It's a very much an awareness stage, but it's still linked to your intelligence. It's still linked to your embodiment, to the awareness. This is actually a siddhi. It's a power. Whatever you bring into this bubble, you can dissolve. So don't use it just to hide out in. It'll become a very rich opportunity for you to start deepening your ability to know what remains in the structure of you as a first stage being. And to be able to deepen and expand the awakening, the awareness that has come to you. And then somewhere along the line, the universe is going to slip in and give you a whammy.
Yeah, I actually want that.
Yeah, I know you do, but you're going to have to. That's art is listening. You train yourself to listen. You notice you're sitting in a very quiet, silent place, and it's like your listening grows greater. The more the silence is. So the deepening into the silence and not getting bored or restless or dissatisfied with nothing happening creates a listening that invites the universe to show itself. Silence and stillness is the ultimate listening.
Yeah, actually, I am a lot less bored than I used to be.
Right.
And I am listening more. I do feel, sometimes I feel stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah, there you go. You go, you know. Yeah, you can actually feel things.
I can actually feel something. Okay. All right. I just wanted to know I'm on the right track. So
These are the remnants of the defensive structures, just like Marilyn was sharing, that thinks that what we are as a person is what we are in truth, and that it needs protection, and that it needs to be safe, it needs to be okay. It's only the individualization. I mean, I don't want to dismiss it, because it's the only thing that keeps you individualized is your fear. The only thing that keeps you is this idea you could die, right? That's what creates human beings. I mean, you got rid of that, then you'd be immortal, and there wouldn't be a journey because you'd already be there. So the play is to be able to wake up in that personhood that you are, that you're converting, you're transmuting your individual embodiment of this life into a vehicle for the Supreme. And then it's all enjoyment. It's all purposeful too. It's all immediate. It's all you've ever wanted or imagined you wanted. It is that which is the reason you're alive for.
yeah,
Okay.
I get all that, you know,
Good.
and I really want it.
Good.
But this structure is
It's the in-between.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's up there and you're here, and it doesn't look so interesting. That looks more interesting. But you got to be where you are.
Yeah, here I gotta be where I am.
Because that's what moves. When you're there, that's what moves it. When you're not there, it doesn't move. You have to be where you are to move. So in any one moment, if you're crappy, be crappy, and that will move you, rather than try to be not crappy.
Mm.
That's when you move.
Okay.
That's why I smile when people are miserable, because I know they're traveling distance. All right, you're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm generally happy here. Maybe I should be somewhere else.
Well, right now you should take this time and begin to be, be someplace. Maybe I should be someplace else is your mantra. You have a life organized, or maybe I should be someplace else. No, the new mantra is, I need to be where I am. I need to be here.
But I'm happy. And you don't like that.
No, look, right now for you, that you're here makes me happy.
Okay. All right. I'm the exception.
There are always exceptions. Yes, you're definitely the exception.
Okay.
Mhm. Oy. Mhm. Good. So pay attention to what you're experiencing. Notice what's going on. If you don't, just be aware of your breath for a bit and breathe into your body. Just take a minute. Because the nature of recognition, revelation, and realization is that you pay attention to what is happening when it's happening. That's how the nature of what you are recognizing becomes more tangible, when you pay attention to it. And your body is the best way to define what that is. It's the more direct than just emotion or awareness. Because remember, that's the part that needs the conversion. That's the part that needs to be transmuted, is the body. All right, Thomas.
Yeah, for me, Ellie just brought in the truth. That was my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of experiences with that, like going into AA and, having so many meetings where people share. And you never know when it's going to happen, but when it happens, you know it. It's like, well,
You
I can't
recognize it.
Yeah, like I can't even remember what is said, and like that's what was so beautiful about this. Nothing was said. Nothing needed to be said. It was just pure.
Pure. Recognition is pure. It's our being that says yes to whatever showed. It says yes. It eats of that just revealed or showed itself that we recognize. This is how we feed our being. What nourishes us on our spiritual journey.
Yeah, it's right here.
And the nature of when you have a lot of darkness, when you've had a lot of pain, when you've had to struggle to come into existence and function in the first stage, it actually makes a more solid vessel when the second and third stage comes. Now, many people bring with them that capacity in their lives, and they don't have necessarily a difficult life. But if you in this life have met darkness of a substantial order, where you've had to struggle and bring forward your authority to come out of it, then you organize yourself in a more powerful way for these stages to come to you. Because ultimately, the first stage needs to sacrifice to get its own nobility. The first stage needs to go through a process by which it can discover that inner authority. And so if you awaken without that, then the awakening spiritual process will bring that. With the teachers, perhaps, or with the circumstances, where you will have to bring forward your authority. You'll have to create out of nothing a new way to be. And it's always sacrifice. That's what the Gita was pointing to. Sacrifice not for any kind of immediate payoff. Sacrifice for sacrifice itself. Offering up something which to give yourself to, where the offering is the fulfillment. Anytime you apply effort or discipline in your life, any austerity that you practice, you bring forward that noble quality in yourself that can, in your first stage, believe, could imagine it's divine, could imagine that it could be eternal in a real way. So every stage of the spiritual journey, every day, tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, is an unfolding of what we're talking about. I'm just giving you the big vista. And at the same time, the current of what I carry is going to you, and it's trying to strengthen you, the traveler, you, that essential truth of what you are, that I am also, that is trying to come to its own authority. And it will give you the faith. It'll give you it'll bring you to a relationship with existence where you can discover that. It's inevitable. It will eventually happen. As in every recognition and every revelation, it's unforgettable to the consciousness. You're now living in an unforgettable environment. You're living in a place you're not going to be able, you can obscure it, you can get distracted from it. But it's the truth of what you are. It's unforgettable because it's a revelation of what's so, not anything added or new. There you have it. Thomas, anything else?
No, I just wanted to thank the group, though. There's such of a spiritual maturity and a real presence here that is obvious, because I can feel my own spiritual maturity and my own presence from hanging with this group. So
this is the ultimate opportunity of the Sangha. It's like a chamber that's holding this possibility, making this possibility real in your own experience. That's how anything is made real in this dimension, is has to be a vessel. And all of us are forming this vessel. And those of you who are committed, who have been with me for years, are actually becoming parts of this vessel, which is for the world. And those who are watching the video, among them, they will be able to access what's being created in this chamber that this fellowship is creating together.
Yeah, I'm grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got such a maybe was going to say.
Yeah, I don't think she's in her. Oh no, she's quite alert. She would have said something the first time. I don't know if time is in her listing of action.
I only want to ask, since you were talking about feeling what's happening in our bodies, and I'd been aware of this earlier tonight, but I'm also aware of it a lot frequently. So just to back up briefly, about 10 years ago, actually maybe 12 years ago, I went through the 9 Gates Mystery School. And one of the things we did every morning was a meditation that brought energy up from the earth and down from above to meet in the high heart. And that was my first awareness of the high heart. And I have ever since carried an awareness of the high heart.
Very good.
And I feel so much. I feel so much up here. And I'm just wondering, what it, aside from the thymus being the thymus, is this something? Is it?
I take this, which is true, and put it in your belly. Okay, and the next layer of the journey will reveal it.
Take these sensations, or take the awareness, because
whatever's there, if it's sensation or awareness or both, and just send it down into your belly
whenever it happens, or
Whenever it happens.
as a practice, or
it can be both. Practice
Okay.
then kind of keeps you in presence, so that when it does come, you know to bring it down into your belly.
Okay, good.
Okay,
That's very cool.
that is very cool.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You've actually had the control of this all along. Now I'm just saying you have the way of taking this and bringing it more deeply into your body.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Has anybody come ask any questions through podcast?
There was one before the broadcast from Luke, but it was is samadhi a state of thought, and you answered that
Okay.
in the first interaction.
Eric's going to come forward.
Hey, hello, everyone.
So, Satri, don't forget the guru and the guru's way.
You can't forget the guru.
No, I don't
It is
think so. So, a while ago, in an email, you made it known that spiritual ego still very active and in Yoga Maya. So I'm wondering, the only things that I notice that change, like my perception is not changing. more absorption is happening. So more like forced silence and stillness happens more often. And the quality of what, you know, I'm a prayer person. So the quality of what how I'm directing my consciousness is increasing really quickly. So those two things I'm noticing, but I'm wondering, like, is there any, like, how will I know what's a sign to recognize I'm like at the edge of Yoga Maya, or when I'll be out of Yoga Maya? Will I know I'm out of Yoga Maya? And so like, what could I work on, or what could I look for that would help these two issues the most? Or should I just keep doing what I'm doing and eventually something's going to shift?
Actually, you should keep doing what you're doing, but there's something else you can do.
All right.
The way to make this real is to embody it more. Okay. So what's happening in your system is that you're awakening with such that you left the body behind. And you've been living in only the upper reaches of your body. And you're able, even though your body is not in collaboration, you're able to hang on to what has come to you in a relatively stable fashion. Okay, so the upper chakras are opened and relatively established. But bringing it into your body is everything. And how do you bring it into your body? You have to discipline it. Sorry. You're at the stage now where you have to discipline your diet, and you have to discipline your exercise, and you have to discipline your indulgence and whatever else you're going that feeds the old habit of you as a person. So my suggestion is that from now on, at every meal, you have one bowl and you eat that much.
One bowl.
Small,
whatever I eat, small bowl.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what you eat.
Okay.
And that you exercise on an average of a half an hour to 45 minutes a day. That means you can have one day where you walk or exercise for an hour, and the next day you don't at all. But as long as it average between 30 and 45 minutes a day, this will then start opening up your body. And the third thing you can do is when you're sitting and you're feeling the mantra and you're evoking the mantra, stop evoking the mantra, become aware of your breath, and bring, just like I was saying to Anne, the vibration you're feeling, and bring it down into your body. All the way down into your body, even to the bottom of your feet.
Okay. So I have the bowl, and because there's still, I was trying to, I didn't realize I set myself up for this. I've been telling people, like, yeah, he said something in a small group. I'm enjoying
now everybody
my
has
time.
heard this.
Yeah. So, and I was naive. That word came out earlier. I was naive to, you were just waiting to, like, it's probably not even the answer relevant to what I was asking. It's just what you want to communicate. But it's okay. I'm going to do it. God willing, Mayor Baba willing. So the bowl, I'm down with that. And the exercise, was it 30 to 45 minutes a day, every day?
So that it averages 30 to 45 minutes. So some days it could be an hour. Some days it could be a half hour. Some days you could not at all. But in a week, you've done 30 to 45 minutes a day. I recommend that you have a regular 45-minute exercise.
Can I go with Saraswati to where she goes for exercise?
Anywhere, anything, any. Yeah. Share him with the community.
All right. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I think I got everything. I just want to vent my frustration because you told me in India the same thing, and what I've noticed is grace is the only thing that puts me there. I'll fill with Pepto-Bismol. Well, I have, not all the time, but I've filled with Pepto-Bismol, pink-like substance all throughout my body, and like nothing works. But grace has put me there, and it seems like grace is the only thing that can put me into my body, that any willful effort isn't really doing anything.
The grace is what's going to allow you to pick bowl. Grace is what's going to allow you to eat only the bowl
Okay,
full.
all right, I got
Grace, yeah.
it. Okay, I got it. I'm done.
We all have our own guru, but sometimes you need an outer guru to activate your own guru. He knew all along. He was hiding out. All right, so we're going to finish with the meditation. We'll have another talk on Saturday, and we'll see if we're going to be in the same theme or something else. All right. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shri. All glory to Gurudev. Namaste.